Sorry? Yes, on the corner. Who said? All right, thank you. So I think we'll be ending this in the last question. What can travel around the world without leaving its corner? It's not air. What can travel around the world without leaving its corner? Sorry? No. What can travel around the world without leaving its corner? Sorry? No. Yeah? Yes, the answer is stamp. Thank you guys. Thank you very much. All right, we still have a few minutes left. All right, I think this is the final last. You throw, but can never catch. Sorry, what can you catch but can never throw? I should go and sit down. All right, very much. All right, since we are still waiting a few more minutes, we want to ask questions about the Ilorin Innovation Hub. Is everyone following the Ilorin Innovation Hub on social media? Kindly do. There are a lot of opportunities and activities starting next month. So follow us on Instagram, on all our social media handles, on Twitter. We have amazing opportunities and activities coming soon. All right, all right, all right. We are ready. We are ready. So for those at the back, kindly occupy the spaces around. We'll be starting in, let me say, 1 minute, less than a minute. Thank you all very much for your patience and understanding. We appreciate it. Please kindly take your seats. For those at the back, you can kindly move, occupy the spaces. All right, thank you all very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very, very much for your patience and understanding. We are about commencing our fireside chat with Iyinoluwa Aboyeji. Our special guest is around. Thank you very much. And so for today's event, I'll be calling the moderator, Zumah Yahaya. Sorry, Zumah Yahaya. I'm sorry. Are we giving at the mic? I'm so sorry.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Wow. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this intimate gathering around our digital fire, because of course there's no fire here, but we are imagining the fire already. This evening, we have the extraordinary privilege of being joined by a force of nature, a builder who doesn't just dream of scale, but architects it, who doesn't just talk about impact, but ignites it, Mr. Iyinoluwa Aboyeji. He has consistently shown us what it means to not just grow, but to skyrocket, to not just plan, but to strategize with audacious clarity, and to not just exist, but to leave an indelible imprint of positive change. This evening, we are not just listening to a story, we are tapping into a wellspring of experience forged in building impactful, large-scale ventures. This is your moment to draw inspiration, to ignite your own visions, and to understand that scale, strategy, and profound impact are not just abstract concepts. These are things that are tangible realities crafted by individuals with courage and conviction. Iyinoluwa, thank you for sharing your light with us. We are truly honored to have you. I know I was meant to read your bio, but I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
Okay, I figured out the mic. Thank you. I call Zumah Madam President, so please just forgive me. She's our Oga here. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Yes, thank you.
I have a lot of questions for you, and I'm also sure the audience, they've got a lot of questions to you. But so let's get right into it.
Absolutely.
So you've built some of the world's most transformative startups. What early lessons from your journey shaped your thinking about where innovation can emerge from?
That's a great question. First of all, it's a big pleasure to be here. I'm from Kwara State, in case you didn't know already. Thank you. It's one of the things I'm proudest of. It's just amazing to see this burgeoning ecosystem emerge from where I'm from. To answer your question, the biggest early lesson I've learned is to run towards problems. Run full speed towards the biggest problem you can find, no matter how crazy, no matter how daring, no matter how dangerous that it seems. Because the vast majority of people are running in the opposite direction. And that's actually where the value is. And I think, I started building businesses very early, right? I did the stuff that every young person did in secondary school. I sold contraband, Valentine's gifts, and I made a killing out of it, and I sold provisions. But outside of that, when I got into the real world, I very quickly immersed myself into trying to figure out big problems and solving those problems. And the first big problem I tried to solve was that my school's learning management system was ugly. And it never occurred to me that there was no way the school would allow a student of the school to build the software that determines their grades. For some reason, it didn't occur to me. I just didn't have the brilliance. And that was the first time I ran into a wall, because of course, when I went to have the conversation with the school about using our learning management system, which we had beautifully crafted, the school obviously said, even if it was the best learning management system in the world, we can't use it. And this is the next big lesson, which is, if you're running in the direction of problems, expect obstacles. And the first obstacle was, okay, I guess the school isn't going to use our software. What do we do with all this stuff we've spent all this time and money to build. And that was when we pivoted to using the platform to help students to aggregate and in a group way problem solve for past questions. Bought past question papers from the Chinese Students Association and we sold them to all the other students on campus. And that was a good business. Until we hit our third obstacle, which was the dean of the school called me into his office one day and said, I'm supposed to expel you. And I said, why? What did I do? And he said, well, you're violating intellectual property, because at the time my university had this weird rule that everything that any professor did belonged to them, 100%. So the professors who did not like setting new past questions, since we had such an impact, were basically reporting us to the school authorities and saying we were stealing their intellectual property and profiting off their intellectual property, which, to be fair, was true, right? So we end up having to pivot again. And that was when I learned my third lesson, which is find your customer and love them and work for them. Because the next thing was, instead of getting angry at the professors, I went to one of them and I said, hey, you guys reported us. And he said, yes, you guys were making our lives difficult because you made us have to set new past questions. And you were profiting off my work and you weren't sharing any revenue with us. And I said, look, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to not share revenue with you, but what could I do for you that would make you very happy? It's like, well, since you already have my work on your website, how about you complete the work you started? Upload all my courses so I can offer my courses to students outside of campus, because according to the rules, everything that I create belongs to me 100%. And that's how Booknedo started to sell past questions, sell online courses, which was actually the business that we exited to this professor, which was my fourth big lesson, which is that policy creates markets. Policy creates markets. So a lot of people don't like government regulation or any kind of regulation. This regulation helped me make my first business work. And then finally, and I'll recap all of them because I now want to go back to you. The final thing was, we had come to the end of my time at the school, and I knew I wanted to go back home. And I was running this business, so I had a conversation with my co-founder first, and he said he also wanted to go back to Silicon Valley. And I went to the professor and I said to the professor, well, both of us are going to be here next year. I'm going home, back to Nigeria. He's going home. He's going to find something new to do in Silicon Valley. What do you want us to do? And he said, well, this thing's made me, a couple $100,000. I would like to continue running it. Can you just give me some support and run it? And we did that, and I took my share of the loot, and I came home and spent it. So know when to walk away. I always know when to walk away. That's ultimately how I have managed to create as much value for myself and for others. So those 5 lessons, I think, are really the crux from the first one, because as I think through my career, those lessons just begun to be repeated. The first, I don't know how many people remember the 5, but I will repeat them again. The first lesson, the direction of problems. Don't run away from problems. Run fully in the direction of problems. The second is expect obstacles if you're running in the direction of problems. There's always people who will stop you, who will try to stop you, but you have to learn to run around them or run past them, The third thing is you need to know your customer and love your customer. And the only way to do that is to talk to them, to learn how to talk to your customers, learn how to know your customer, understand your customer. Almost anybody can be a customer. Even your enemy can be a customer. The fourth thing is policy creates markets. So anytime a rule is made, don't be like, oh, we hate regulation. Ask yourself, who's making money from this rule? And how can that person be me? Right? And then number 5, know when to fold and walk away. I think a lot of entrepreneurs never make money because they put themselves in something I call a forever loop, where they're just, building and building and building. I can't do something for longer than 3 years. So I do it and I walk away from it and look for the next challenge.
That's interesting, E. My own takeaway from all of this is if something is annoying you, instead of passing it on or just whinging about it, just fix it. He had issues with the
UX of
the school application, and he chose to fix it, and he made a lot of money from it, and he was also able to create impact. And my second learning from that is the fact that innovation can emerge anywhere. He was not even trying to be innovative. He was just solving the problem. And that cascaded into so many things. Thank you for that short story, E. Okay. So was there a defining moment when you realized that great companies can be built outside of Lagos and Abuja?
That's a great question. I mean, I've always known that. But well, first of all, the reason why I always knew that was because I remember one day I was in. So let me reset. A big part of my job when I was at Andela, and some of you might know Andela. Andela was a training platform that we built over 10 years ago. Was going around to different schools and universities and everywhere and trying to find the best talent and convince them to go to Lagos and make it big in the software world. I remember one time I came to University of Ilorin and I slept in the hostel in Ilorin. I'm sure this was a long time ago, maybe like over 10 years ago now. And I was just trying to convince young people, hey, you're very talented, take our test, come to Lagos. Lagos is a big city, lots of lights, lots of babes. It's an amazing place. I went to Port Harcourt. The company was doing broilers. So they had a hatchery and they were doing rabbit eggs or something. I don't know. Maybe rabbits don't have eggs, but they had day-old chicks, all that stuff. And I was just fascinated at the fact that these people had managed to build this hatchery, outside of Lagos. And this hatchery was making a lot of money. They were making all these very rare animals, and they were shipping it out. The other time that I really saw, you could build something really interesting outside of Lagos was, when I went and I visited a company in Jigawa State. So Jigawa State, not on anybody's radar. I was just traveling the north, and I just saw, I went to Jigawa State to talk to some students, and there was apparently this Lebanese-owned software development shop that had a bunch of, software that they built for all sorts of people. So I knew very early that this was possible. I also knew very early that Ilorin could be a destination because, so one of the things I almost never admitted to at Andela, so Andela used to put out this list of top recruiting schools. And in our internal data, University of Ilorin will come first. But because I was from Kwara State, I would always tell them to remove it and make it fifth. Because I was like, if people found out that University of Ilorin was the top recruiting school, they would just assume that it's because I'm from Kwara State. So I was like, no, so just put it number 5. But then as I started to transverse corporate, I was always very amazed at how many people that were the backbone of all the largest corporations were from Kwara State and generally the Middle Belt. And I was telling some of my friends today, I was like, the truth of the matter is, if you were a strategic warfare commander and you really, really wanted to take out Nigeria, you would basically just wipe out the Middle Belt because you could get rid of all the people that actually work. You get rid of all the food, and you get rid of like 95% of tacticians in the Nigerian army. So the truth of the matter is, we're now at a time where other ecosystems have to evolve. But you see, why didn't we come here earlier? The reality of it is that you want the lowest barrier to entry. You're trying to prove, you want the lowest barrier to proof. So it's sort of like when you're building a new ecosystem, and at the time, Nigeria was not on the map, right? You go to wherever is on the map, and at that time, Yaba was what was on the map, right? Because Yaba already had fiber, it already had some sort of critical mass, had some universities. So actually, fun story, the first place I actually landed in Nigeria was Abuja, actually. But I left Abuja because there was nothing going on there apart from government contracts at the time. Now it looks like it's becoming a destination. And so back to what I was saying, I went Lagos, Yaba, you could prove things out, you could show people you had capacity. And then right after Yaba, you then had to look around for where talent density was the greatest. And there are just a few places in this country where there's a lot of talent density, right? And Ilorin happens to be one of those places. So I think we have a real shot. We have a real shot at building the next big things from here.
Please, can we clap for ourselves, please? Thank you. So at what point did you stop telling people to come to Lagos?
Look, I had to make a lot of money first. I still tell people to come to Lagos. I still tell people to come to Lagos. I just don't tell people in Ilorin to come to Lagos.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why, right? Very simple. Lagos is a fantastic ecosystem for certain things, especially now that it's blown, right? So if you're building a software business with commercial roots, probably trying to service banks, especially if you're in fintech. Actually, my one out of character company, I built all my companies in Yaba, but Flutterwave. I moved to Lekki to build Flutterwave. And I absolutely hated living in Lekki. But why? I had to be close to the banks. I had to be able to get to a bank CEO's house, a bank executive director's house, a bank anything's house. I had to be able to rush to the bank anytime they called you. And that could be any time. And, maybe that's the day that tankers decide to litter the bridge. So again, you have to keep your customers first. But I would argue that right now, given where the country is, there's a lot of competition in Lagos, and internet connectivity. I mean, back then, Lagos was probably the only place where you would even be able to get like a 10 Mbps connection, if you're being realistic, right? Now, like, my village has 5G, So it's like, it's light and day from where we start. And so, I mean, now there is an opportunity for people who actually maybe have gone to Lagos, learned, to come back. Guess one thing, when I talk to Andela, we used to call them fellows. When I talk to Andela fellows and I say, oh, where do you live now? Of course, for the vast majority of them, they're abroad. So people live in Germany, people live in whatever. But in Nigeria, the number one place is actually Ibadan, right? I think it could be Ilorin, but today it's Ibadan. And why is that? You know, you take your 35K to Iya Yusuf, like you're gonna have a feast, you know? You, you, I don't know what you're looking to do. You know, there's nobody with a straw like they do in Lagos, sucking money out of your pocket. Rent, I don't know what rent is, but I sure as hell know it's not 7 million naira. Which is what I charge my tenants in Yaba. It's different. It's just a different world entirely. And if I was a software developer with the infrastructure that exists in a place like Kwara today, I would definitely choose to live in Kwara. And then I can take the 5-hour, car ride to Lagos whenever I want.
What unique advantages do you think emerging cities like Ilorin offer for innovation and startup growth? And what do we often underestimate?
Yes. There's a lot that people underestimate about Kwara. So, first of all, I think if you're just it's okay if you choose to do it. It's a cheaper location for you to build a software company. But if that's all you choose to do, I think it will be disappointing, right? Because at the end of the day, look, if you're a top 10 software developer, you're probably thinking to yourself, I can be anywhere. And if you're not from Kwara or you don't have deep roots here, Kwara may not be like the number one place that you want to be. Although I think we should change that, and we talked about that. It's like, if you give people a tax cut, you tell people, hey, under your salary, if Auntie Shadia agrees to make it 10% instead of 20%, I know a lot of people who I'll bring. But failing that, software, I think Kwara is an excellent place for innovation in real world assets. Why do I say that? Number one, so I didn't really realize originally, but when I started to come home more often, I noticed that, when I drive down to my village is ATT, which is like 90 minutes from Ilorin, just after Oro. And, I would drive down and I would be expecting the telecoms to cut. Like I'll be expecting that at some point the connectivity would degrade. But I'll just see okay, when I leave Ilorin, I might have adjacent or might be a little bit tricky. But once you get past that, you're just 5G, clear calls. And I'm like, what happened? So I started asking my dad. My dad was like, well, at the time they started all the telecom stuff, the minister was from Kwara State, Cornelius Adebayo.
Yeah.
And that area was where he was from. So a lot of the telcos, in typical Niger fashion, decided to line his village with towers. And I was like, wow, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And so you have incredible connectivity. Now, what else do you have? Now, a lot of people are going to be enamored by big structures like this, being in urban Ilorin and all that. But there's farmland there, right? Right opposite my house in the village, got rows and rows and rows of cashew. And people are just growing cashew because that's what they know. But if you could grow almost any other kind of crop and you wanted to be able to have some sort of, IoT installation or connectivity installation, you would actually be able to create that kind of demonstration farm a lot easier here than anywhere else. And then the last thing is the talent, right? That you have incredible engineering talent in University of Ilorin, Food Mina, in Ogbomoso, right? In Futa. Futa is a bit far away from here, except you're coming up through Ekiti. But there's a school in Ogbomoso which skips my mind. Huh? Lautech, yeah, in Lautech. So that nexus of engineering talent surrounds Ilorin. And it's a lot easier to get them to come to Ilorin than to get them to go down south to Ibadan or to Lagos to do stuff. So there is actually an opportunity to build real world, solutions to real world problems out of here. And so the other thing is that because of the cost of talent and the plentifulness of talent, you have an opportunity to take on much more difficult problems with a longer runway than Lagos people would have. Because if you're paying 7 million naira rent, there's a range of problems you can solve. And they won't be small businesses. They won't be for farmers. They're going to be for big companies and all of that. But, there's some really cool companies that I've seen try and solve problems for farmers, and they're able to gain scale because people have relatively easier access to the internet. You have relatively cheap talent that can make it work here. And people here are fairly open to technology. It's not like if you went just a few degrees north, you would have some challenges, right? Because culturally, people are not really big fans. And then if you went a little bit further south, you would have the infrastructure challenge, and you would still have, the fact that perhaps in some of those markets that are even viable,
saturated.
like the capital cities, they're very saturated. So you have an opportunity to really use this as a demo space. And for me personally, when I think about the vision for a place like Ilorin, I'm thinking, how do you actually get the incredible talent? How do you leverage the connectivity, which has been further bolstered by the policy? Remember, policy creates markets. Policy of free right of way. And then how do you put that together with very modern technology that makes a lot of things a lot easier and better to do? For example, you have, you have IoT, right? You have IoT sensors. You have access to very cheap compute over the internet. And then you have a corporate like IHS just hovering over in the room. So if something actually makes sense and can scale across Nigeria, you can piggyback on them. Because I think that is one thing that has been missing in this ecosystem for a long time. You don't have a big brother, a big corporate. Yeah, it's very hard to build ecosystems without a big corporate. So I really see an opportunity to build something special here, especially now that we have this type of infrastructure. 10,000 square meters of just fantastic space. The biggest hub now in West Africa. You can clap. It's an incredible opportunity because it's not just about the space. Anywhere can be a good space, but it's about the ability to convene talent. People from University of Ilorin, people from Kwasu, people from Food Mina, people from, Lautech. 4 years is coming up now. All that talent can converge here and build something. So I think it's massive, and the Middle Belt needs this because even from a defense perspective, from a manufacturing perspective, which are areas which I think are very important to the future, there is more opportunity to build those types of things here than in Lagos. In Lagos, if you want to lease out space for manufacturing, you're talking $80 per square meter, right? Here, you can probably get the space to be a lot lower than that, but it would require a lot of leadership. And that means, and when I say a lot of leadership, I mean people like me can't come from Lagos and tell you what is possible here. You're going to have to dream it up from here in Ilorin and pull together all the pieces, and then people like me can just come and bring whoever you need from anywhere, whether Lagos, Abuja, or wherever, to come to Ilorin, see what you're doing, and support you. So that's what I think.
So in simple parlance, Ilorin is the sweet spot.
Very sweet spot. It's just about liberal enough. There's a club right next to my hotel.
Oh.
I think if you go a little bit further, I don't go there, but I'm just saying, like, you can at least have fun.
Why are you issuing a disclaimer?
Huh?
Why are you issuing a disclaimer?
No, I'm just saying, But I'm just saying that, like, Ilorin it has the lifestyle. It's chill, but you can get serious work done. That's a place that not many places in Nigeria can lay claim to.
I agree. Can we clap for ourselves, please? Thank you. So what do you think investors typically misunderstand about emerging cities, startups operating from emerging cities like Ilorin?
I think the biggest thing, the first thing that investors misunderstand generally is that they don't really understand that talent is the heart of ecosystems, right? And that all the talent you love in Lagos, they all came from somewhere, and it's probably not Lagos, right? So when they see talent aggregated in a place, the very curious ones are always eager to figure out, where did you come from? I had to do that because my strategy at Andela was to figure out where the best talent came from and ask them to go bring me more of their friends. So as soon as I got some kids from University of Ilorin in the program, I was like, there's like 5 University of Ilorin people here. What are you guys drinking? And take me to where you guys are coming from. And I would drive up and try and see. But a lot of investors don't do that digging. And that's why they're not very good investors. So a lot of investors don't realize that the biggest misunderstanding for emerging cities is that the only reason why emerging cities are still emerging is because they don't have infrastructure to convene their talent. So they have to, the best of their talent or the most determined of their talent have to leave their hometown and head over to a place like Lagos. It's not that Lagos has great talent. It's that Lagos has infrastructure to aggregate talent. But if you have a place like Ilorin where some of the elements of a great talent engine are already in place, like a fantastic university that's better by far, connectivity, like a fantastic hub like this one. Once you have that ecosystem in place, you want to be where it is, because then you want to be the investor who's going to sit in Ilorin and send the deals that matter to Lagos. One of the companies that I found here is a company called Edvest. We eventually moved them to Lagos, regrettably. But Edvest started in Ilorin, right? Many people don't know that. 11 years ago or so. And, that company, value for money wise, has done really, really well for the investors that found them when they were in Ilorin. But if you discover them in Lagos, the discount, the emerging cities discount is gone. So I think there's a lot of investors that just need to understand that all the talent that you see aggregated in Lagos is coming from somewhere. So you need to actually dig deep and try and figure out where is that place. Also, ecosystems can organize themselves in infrastructure like this and convene to make it easier. Like if you had a demo day for your startups, I can tell you we'll probably have a demo day for startups at some point this year. And, it's easier for an investor to fly in. Thank God you guys have an airport, unlike some people, You have an airport, we can fly in, do the demo day and go back, the same day or the next day. That makes a big difference, right? Because investors don't want to be out of station for too long. So I think the ecosystem can do a bit more in terms of helping educate investors about the depth of talent here and show them what's possible when they have spaces for convening like this. But I also think that investors also need to educate themselves about where does all the incredible talent that you rave about, where are they coming from? Are they actually from Lagos? Because so far I don't know that Lagos itself has necessarily been the source of most of that talent.
It's interesting here. Beyond demo day, how can we change the narrative?
I think the biggest thing about changing a narrative is you just have to show rather than tell. And that's the stubborn thing about narratives, is that for some people, Ilorin is still whatever it was 10 years ago, right? Connectivity wasn't great. You have to graduate from Ilorin and go to Lagos, to get anything done, etc., etc. But by the time people start to see innovation one, innovation two, by the time they start to see companies raise money while being based in Ilorin, by the time they start to see spaces like this, it completely changes what remains in their mind about Ilorin. One of my favorite things about this space is that there's nobody that will visit this space and not leave like thinking about it, right? And that's something that I really want to commend the governor, everybody that pulled together to make this happen. So because I was to my partners, I have a free zone, right, in Lagos, just on the outskirts. I was talking to my partners and I was telling them that if you're a faraway place and you need people to journey to meet you, right, you need to leave them with something they can never forget. You don't have the luxury of like being ordinary. Like CC Hub could afford to be ordinary, quote unquote, and even then it wasn't for its time, because you're going to pass by Yaba on your way to the airport. So you really don't have a choice. At some point you'll stop by if that's the only thing you can see. But you know what? Like if you don't have a reason to come to Ilorin, what's going to bring you here? You're just being point blank, like nothing. You're not going to come to Ilorin except you have a reason to go to Ilorin. Because, you're coming to Ilorin, you're not really going anywhere. You understand what I'm saying? So if you don't create an ecosystem that wows people, and that starts with a building, but it has to be more than that, right? It has to be the quality of startups, the depth of research. That's why the first couple of challenges that we've been sponsoring, bringing to the table, we're not telling you go build an app to like solve, I don't know, financial inclusion. It's like, I can see that in Lagos. People to come here and be like, I want to see some crazy, resource constrained computing. I want to see some, chat GPT of the future. I want to see something that if I saw it in Lagos, I'd be like, that's interesting. But because I'm seeing it in Ilorin, I'm like, wow. You know what I mean? I can't even see this in Lagos that often. Because people are not going to come here unless you do that. I want to just end with a story. So one of the benefits that I have, in terms of my career as an ecosystem builder, as an entrepreneur, as an investor, is that I saw the beginning of a lot of ecosystems. So a lot of people see ecosystems when the ecosystems are like ripe. They're big. They're fantastic. Like it's like somebody coming to the Lagos ecosystem now. They're like, it's done. The work is pretty much finished, right? But starting from when I went to school, I had this incredible luck to go to school in a very small town, for university in a small town called Waterloo. And when I went to school in 2008, Waterloo only had one thing going for it. It was BlackBerry. BlackBerry was blowing up, but everybody, if people recognize, Steve Jobs was just about to come. So this was the last hooray. So BlackBerry was coming up. Everybody wanted a BlackBerry. Nigeria, BlackBerry was the rave. And I lived in the city where BlackBerry was being made. And it was the only game in town. But the iPhone was coming. By 2010, when the iPhone launched, BlackBerry was done. It was over. And so between 2010 and 2012, when I graduated, I had to watch this community rebuild its entire ecosystem without its centerpiece, right? And that gave me a lot of appreciation for what it takes to build an ecosystem. But you know what? Slowly, people that refused to move but could have, talent that came back, people that just built, people that helped other people build, the ecosystem started to come back. And I started my company in 2010, literally, when the iPhone killed the BlackBerry. And I remember, the school started this program called Velocity. So it was an entrepreneurship lab, but rather than put it in the university, they put it in the city. And I used to have this guy who sat next to me. His name was Jay. He's a really nice guy. He was building this technology that is now very popular, where you could enter a code that they had sent to you via text message and unlock a box, a locker, so you could get out your boxes. That technology was invented in Waterloo. So they used to be called buffer box. So one day we used to have this joke amongst us because, again, the only thing that really matters about community is people, right? The reason why this space is going to be exciting to visit is not going to be because of how beautiful this hub is. It's going to be because of how brilliant the people inside the hub are. Anyway, this guy, we used to have a joke that we would work people work 9 to 5, we work 5 to 9. So 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Because that was how long the buses would come from uptown Waterloo down to Kitchener. So I came that morning at 5 a.m. where I had some trouble with suicides because it's a very tough academic environment. So some students had committed suicide. So when I got to my workplace, it was taped. You know how taped like it was a crime scene. It was yellow tape like it was a crime scene. And I was like, well, I hope nobody I know committed suicide overnight. But then obviously they wouldn't let me in. So I went to the Tim Hortons coffee and I sat down. And I was just there working on my computer. And a friend came in. I mean, one of our 5 to 9ers came in and was like, hey, E, have you seen the paper this morning? And I saw the newspaper. And on the newspaper, the guy who sits next to me, his company just got bought by Google for $30 million. Right? And, in my head, and I know in everybody's head, they were like, this guy sitting right next to me is now a millionaire. We're all the same age. He doesn't have 2 heads. Right? If he can do it, I will kill myself to get it done. And that was the switch in my head, that you weren't hearing about a $30 million acquisition from somebody who was, living in Toronto, or living in somewhere far away. This guy was where you see, and we saw every day, and he was my friend. So you knew that if it could come that close to you, it could happen. It should be able to happen to you. Exactly. So all it will take for this neighborhood to become like a name. Somebody builds an incredible company here. That company raises $10 million. Ilorin is a destination, man. That's just how it works. Right? It's just how it is. It really is not rocket science. Just one person, or one person sells their company to Google for even like $5 million. Like we don't 30 million. Just even 2 billion naira. Like you build technology that IHS thinks is interesting. and IHS says, okay, you know what? My Uncle Shehu here says it's interesting. Take 2 billion. You know what I mean? That's all it takes. So don't think of these things as far off. And when I saw that, I went to the Boston ecosystem, saw the same thing. I went to the San Francisco, by the way, has had like resurgences. It's now going through another resurgence. People think of it as just like all-time, startup nation. No. It's like when I went to San Francisco in 2012, they had just gone through a big slump, right? 2012, 2013, there was a big slump because this was, crazy times, and I remember at the time that it was just a very different place. I still have memories of, people, singing together in the middle of the night at like a hill, with a piano, and then going back to work after that, sleeping under their tables. So I'm just saying that the early stages of an ecosystem is a very, very exciting time. And you have an opportunity, everybody that's here, to be a part of something special that will happen if you let it. Don't waste it. That's all I have to say. Don't waste it.
Thank you for that insightful response, E. So what he's saying is the only way we can change the narrative is to aggressively build. Build, keep building, and also tell the right stories while building. So on to the fun questions. So if you were to draft a playbook for Ilorin to become West Africa's next breakout tech hub, what are the first 3 things you'd do?
I think, look, if I was to draft the funny thing is that, so first of all, I would look around me and think, what are the big problems that only Ilorin can solve? And the more I think about those questions, in my mind, this is just my playbook, everybody should have theirs and feel ready to lead on their own playbook, because that's how ecosystems grow. You never know what will make it out. For me, I feel like there is an opportunity to really build in the intersection of hardware and software. Because the talents in this area, they're not afraid of getting their hands dirty. They don't have soft hands like the Lagos people. These are hands that have touched grass. You know what I mean? Not just money. So I feel like if we started to build, real world applications, like what can make farmers more productive, what can make it easier for farmers, for livestock to be more productive, what can make a big difference when it comes to energy, right? This is a town. Kwara basically is one of the energy centrals, even though they claim it's Niger State, but it's basically one of the, like Jeba is just an hour from here. There are many energy centers here where you could aggregate data on real world assets, build software that could make that more easier to manage, easier to monetize real world assets. I think it could be very, very interesting. I think there are also other applications in just, again, if you think about a company like IHS, right? This is a company with 16,000 towers, right? It's a company that uses, easily more than like 100,000 megawatts of energy across all its towers. And that data, I don't know where it is. And I don't think they even know where it is, right? There's probably a world where, you can come up with I'm always shocked when I come here and Timmy tells me that the solar thing hasn't broken down yet. Power, I think that's here. 60 kilowatts of power that's here that powers up this entire building and makes sure that it's off grid. These are areas where, when I think about a playbook for Ilorin, I would just be doing hardware hackathons every day. Everybody would have a Raspberry Pi. We would build some really cool stuff and reprogram it and rebuild and reprogram. So it's not just software, but it's like also hardware. Lagos can get away with just doing software because they have a port. They can import everything, right? By the time chips get to us here in Ilorin, the price is already times 3. Do you understand? And yet, there's a lot of old electronics that are spoiled and all that. We may not necessarily have access to compute. Is there a way we can pieces those things and try and just take a little bit of, GPU from the PlayStation, piece it together and build our own GPU server inside here? Because we have power 24/7 to power it, and we wouldn't spend any additional money. Those are the kind of crazy ideas I wouldn't want us to do what Lagos is doing, right? I definitely wouldn't want us to do fintech stuff because I don't think it makes much sense for a place like Ilorin, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just I just feel like building real world applications, that would be my big playbook.
And quite interesting, E. What E is saying is it's time to get our hands dirty. We need to move and look beyond the software. We need to find the balance between solving between the hard and the software. So, what would you say to a young founder in Ilorin today who has a great idea but feels limited by their environment?
I think the first thing is there's no such thing as being limited by your environment. You're only limited by your imagination, right? The reality is there's a lot of places in the world that look like Kwara. There's maybe more places in the world that look like Kwara than places in the world that look like Lagos or New York. And if you're not limited by your imagination, you can actually think through all the things that people are able to do from places that look like Kwara and think about how, you're able to do some of the same things. Because, and also consider that the only other thing that can limit you really is competition. And you don't have it here. People are not fighting necessarily for, to come to Kwara. So if you're in Kwara, you're one of 4 million people. Lagos, the whole of Lagos is 21 million people. You should consider yourself lucky. You have the whole of Kwara to yourself. So if you actually think about it in those terms, you're not limited. Lagos is barely 144,000 square miles, with 21 million people hustling for everything that moves. You're here in Kwara, drive 20 minutes out and you can buy land for 100,000 naira. And it won't be small land. There are very few places in Nigeria where you can say that, I'm telling you. So don't be limited by your imagination, right? Because that's what it means. Your environment does not limit you. The environment is a blank canvas. The only thing you're limited by is your imagination.
For that, E. Next, we'll be taking questions from the audience.
Timmy, just come and tell us something. Give him a round of applause. I was supposed to do this before this started, but we have our Oga at the top. We don't want to keep him waiting. But since this is a chat, I don't think this is a very super formal environment. I also just wanted to appreciate Iyin and everybody, all the guests that have come. There's some people here from outside town. Thank you very much for coming. For everybody here within Ilorin, within Kwara, I hope your level of motivation has started rising. But I also just wanted to speak to a few things briefly. Don't worry, I'll be out of here very quickly. So yes, intersection of software and hardware. I think that is actually one of our focuses here, because like you've said, when people think of tech, everybody just thinks, oh, building an app, building an app, building an app. But there's so many solutions to problems around us that have to do with more than just software. Like was mentioned, there's so many things we can do for farmers at different levels. We can find solutions for small farmers. We can create solutions for even the big farmers. We have so many huge agricultural industries here in Kwara State. What else is huge here? Manufacturing is also very big here in Kwara State. We have a lot of factories, a lot of industry. And what's the advantage? We have land. We have land and we have electricity. At least a good level of electricity for some of these industries to be here. There's some people that can tell you in the areas that they live, just because of the amount of industries around where they live in that neighborhood, they have almost uninterrupted power supply. There's some parts of Ilorin that can boast about that. Am I correct? Okay, so before I go on, is there... Okay, does anybody in the audience want to help? I would say maybe Asadam to the hub, where people will be able to start playing with things like what Iyin has mentioned with robotics, circuits, and hardware. We can start putting together prototypes right here. Maybe somebody has an idea for a new type of POS machine, a new type of sprinkler, a new type of something connected to software that can solve problems. So in fact, we received our first consignment from the UNDP today, coincidentally. Yes. Space for them, it's open space. They're still going to come and fix it up, and that is definitely one of our focuses, like energy. We're practicing that in reality already with our solar system. So yeah, we're definitely doing that. And beyond that, I'm also somebody that has lived outside of Ilorin, very far away. I've lived in the US, I've lived in the UK. Back in Nigeria, I've lived in Abuja, in Lagos, and trust me, I don't even want to go back to any of those places that I've mentioned, and I'm very happy and fine being here in Ilorin, in Kwara State. Obviously, it's not like I'm trapped here. I mean, I travel, I can still go and come, but I'm very comfortable here. I have everything I need, and I've created my own comfort. Like Iyin said, what I pay for my rent here would not pay for the same type of property back in 2013, 14 is the same thing I'm paying now in Ilorin. So you can imagine how more expensive that would have become in Lagos. Where I stayed now has tripled in rent value in Lagos, but that's what I'm paying now, and it's even very expensive here. So it's still very affordable. Your rent in Lagos, be honest, tell me. How many of you work for companies outside? Can you see? So it's happening. And they're getting the type of pay people in Lagos are getting. Living like kings and queens here in Ilorin with a big house, big compound, mango trees. You can't try that in Lagos. So we're not just selling Ilorin, we're being practical. It's really getting better value for what you earn. You can make good money in Lagos, and at the end of the month, you have nothing to show. Because once you step out of your house and you come back, 100K is gone. No, just stepping out. 100K is already gone. But yeah, thank you very much. This is not a formal speech. I just wanted to add, we'll go on with the Q&A right now. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, my brother.
You'll still be making another address, by the way. So let's... but now we'll be taking questions from the audience. Okay, we will take 10 questions. 5 from this side, 5 from this side. The lady on the pink scarf, 1. The man on the blue dress, 2. The fair man in brown, 3. I need another woman from this side. Okay, the man in blue on glasses, 4. And the man in white, thank you, 5. For this side, the lady on glasses, 6. The lady on scarf, 7. Here, 7. The man at the extreme back, 8. The man wearing sunglasses indoors, 9.
The bad guy indoors.
And the man in suit, 10. Thank you. 1.
Good evening, everyone.
The format is you tell us your name, what you do, and then you now get into your question.
Okay, my name is Iyinoluwa Samuel. I study in University of Ilorin. I study in Industrial Relations and Personnel Management. So my question is to you, sir. Would you say that studying outside Nigeria changed your life? And do you think you will have had the same impact if you had studied in Nigeria?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the honest truth is the opportunity to study abroad definitely exposed me to a lot of things I wouldn't have known otherwise. And I would say particularly, not just any school, but because I went to University of Waterloo, because the school actually gave me the opportunity to do both work and study. So the way the school works, you went to school and you also went to work, back and forth. I don't think if I went to any other school, it would have made much of a difference, because I also think that if I had gone to abroad, even to Waterloo, without the mentality that I did, it would have made much of a difference. Why do I say that? Because again, when I look at other people who went to school with me, I wasn't the only Nigerian in my school, right? Many of the people who went to school with me, they didn't engage outside of the academics. They just went to school, came back. They never even wanted to do the cooperative education program. They never got involved in the innovation hub. They never did any of that. I was probably the only person, but they left school, they got normal jobs, many of them got passports, and that's pretty much it. And I say that to say, yes, if you have the opportunity to go abroad, it makes a difference. If you don't have the mentality to take advantage of the opportunities, back as an expensive graduate. Yeah.
So I'd like to add to that with a practical example, because people are very keen abroad versus Nigeria. So I'll just give an example. So I went to school in Nigeria for my first degree. I went to Babcock University, and I had some friends. There were so many people I knew and I still know. But there were some 2 guys that were very unknown, very quiet. They were just there, going to school, coming back, going to class. There was no big deal. They didn't go outside. They graduated from the country for education one single time before that happened. So there's stories with both sides of possibilities. There's people that went abroad and just got sucked into corporate life, and they're still there till now with their families. They're happy taking pictures, but they're not making impact. there's also people here in Nigeria doing the same thing. So it's not really about where, I think it's about your mindset at the end of the day and how you can make use of whatever it is that you're exposed to. Because many people are exposed abroad and not doing anything with that exposure.
Number two.
If you forget your number.
All right. Yeah, my name is Yusuf Larawaju, and I'm a product manager. Actually, I've been product manager for hardware and now for software. I'm a PhD student at University of Ilorin Physics Department. So my question is this: you talk about intersection of software and hardware. Having been somebody who have experienced both, that's one thing I noticed. I feel, and I want to see what do you feel about this. That people believe the hardware is hard. Obviously, it is hard. That is the truth. So, and there is this fluid in software that tends to appeal to human nature. Software is just like a soft life. You can actually do software anywhere and collaborate with people. Hardware need all of you coming together, present, sometimes need to brainstorm together. So with this, there is question my question is just this. Like places that want to look at harnessing this talent into interfacing hardware and software together to solve problem. And the reality of this for hardware is that there is movement of tools. And these tools, most often time in our own area, apart from being expensive, they are believe that you can get them at cheaper rates in China. For example, somebody here developed hardware solution, maybe for automatic changeover lights, which I believe I've done that before with my team. And you pitch it to somebody like, how much is it? Because of the cost of things you spend and everything, like, okay, it costs, for example, 10,000 naira. I was like, oh, this way I can get it at 5,000 naira in this place, in China, you understand? That discourage that innovation in the hardware part. And also in the aspect of this talent, bringing talent together and like, talents are not feeling like, oh, why would I go there and do hardware? I can do software and be doing reports remotely. Hardware allows you to come to the, what is called, site, you understand? So what are those possibilities that you think that one can look into it to encourage people, like, oh, forget about this soft life, about this, these are things. And what are the opportunities that are available for these hardware talents? Because most of them don't even see these things. Most of the companies that do hardware, like automobile companies, they don't hire talents as we have for what's it called, software. So what are those things that we feel like we can look differently into, not to what's it called, to abrogate these challenges?
Fantastic. I mean, so you notice I didn't say do hardware, and I didn't say do software. I said we need to build things in the entire. I said that. So why is China cheaper, right? China is cheaper because China has scale, right? And China has scale because they've made the investment in infrastructure for scale. I don't know that the idea of bringing together hardware and software is so you can replace China. You understand what I'm saying? But to use the example that you gave about a changeover, if your changeover switch only does the same thing that China does, why should anybody buy it? But if your changeover switch is the sort of changeover switch that from my phone I can change over, which would require you to integrate hardware and software, do you think that people might be willing to pay a bit more than they would be willing to pay for just a China changeover switch that doesn't give them that ability? They'll be willing to pay more. So, because China is building for a broad range of use cases, they don't really care about your particular problem. They don't care that your PHCN is unreliable. They don't care. You understand what I'm saying? They're just building chips and just building something. You're the one that has a lot of context about the problem, right? So you have the ability to create a complete solution rather than just mimic what. You also need to give a thought to man. Now, maybe changeover switch is changeover switch. I don't need it to be that fancy. But imagine that you are managing a facility or a number of facilities. You understand? And you're trying to measure how are we using fuel consumption is somehow useful to you. Maybe if you're when lights went off, you can compare. Oh, based on how many hours of power there was, how come we are spending this much on diesel? So that you know what happens to diesel doesn't happen to diesel. Diesel likes to disappear. It's just normal. You understand what I'm saying? Can that data make sense to somebody? That is the difference between somebody who just wants to make hardware for the sake of making hardware and somebody who wants to use hardware and software to solve a problem. Now, you will still end up buying those chips from China. But there is a step that must happen here, right? Where you integrate that hardware with your software. It can only happen here because hopefully you won't be stupid enough to send your software to China. I hope they will do it for you, right? So the customer will be willing to pay for that additional feature. And then that means that you're able to still make your margin off of what China is giving you. You would even get to a point where you can tell China, do it like this, then send it to me. I'll do the final coupling and I will sell to my clients. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So that's why I said, don't focus on the thing, just focus on how do you solve the person's problem.
Thank you very much, Mr. Iyin. My name is Matthew. I'm a final year medical student of the University of Ilorin and also a software developer. And my question is centered around ethic. Yeah. And it's two questions, but centered around the same thing. What do you think is the hope of an ethic startup starting right here in Ilorin? Me and my guys came up with an idea because I study in the teaching hospital there. And we see that there is a deficit coming from the rural area. We see that disease that comes especially from the rural area, outskirts of Ilorin here, are their end stage before they present here. So we are thinking of a technology that can help us, even right from here in the tertiary institution and even here in the general hospital. We can create a technology that will create a link up whereby people are able to identify diseases early, even in the community, before they present in the late stage. So I'm thinking, what is the hope of a EdTech startup starting right here in Ilorin and also generally in Nigeria? Do you think, what are the things that you think can help an EdTech startup scale more better? Thank you.
Absolutely, great question. So my general frame for looking at most problems is that problems are either people problems, they are data problems, or they are context problems, right? Meaning culture, people's understanding and stuff like that, right? And the thing with healthcare is that most problems in healthcare are all three, right? They are presenting late stage, not because they didn't medicate, but because they probably went to a chemist who just prescribed malaria drug because that's the only thing they know, right? And or can report. And honestly, making your way from the hinterland to Ilorin, even though it's a very short distance, so But because we don't have public transport in Nigeria, right, or trains or inland metro, you have to spend a lot of money compared to your income to come from the hinterlands into Ilorin. So you would do your best to avoid it, no matter how bad you're feeling, because that adds to your cost of care. Context, right? Now, anybody that wants problems in rural areas, in a place like Ilorin, that person must be willing, and in many places that look like the outskirts of Ilorin, that person must be willing to take on these three problems. And that's an opportunity for people like you that have both an understanding of software and an understanding of medicine. Hopefully, AI can help us to replace one or the other, or both. But there's not enough doctors, so there are not enough people who can actually, provide that knowledge. But the hope is that, look, with AI and the extensive cataloging of different diseases, perhaps if you present some symptoms at a primary healthcare center or to a chemist who is trained to use AI to make that diagnosis, they may be able to take somebody in the right direction. And if there's things that can be done right there to ameliorate the situation, rather than just giving you malaria tablets, they can give you that care immediately. Then you go to the data problem. It still needs to be logged, because particularly if those are infectious diseases, chances are a lot more people are going to have that. Or if something is a non-communicable but lifestyle disease, a lot more people are likely to also have the same thing. And that data allows us to be able to design interventions at scale, so that we know, okay, if it's an epidemic of, communicable sorts, we can warn people, or we can even design some sort of solution where we go into the community, haven't detected it, and try to solve the problem. If it's not communicable, we can start to give people some preventive warning, right? Context, at the end of the day, if there is no dedicated interface between the primary healthcare centers and the tertiary healthcare centers, it doesn't matter how much money you pump into either end of the funnel, you're still going to have the problem that you have. And even for the tertiary, one of the things I've learned is that the devices that we use in these hospitals, they are not really designed for our environment. Somebody has a suction tube that is dependent on power. Is that not a useless? Do you understand? In an environment where we all know there is no power, or you have theater lights that is dependent on power, you don't have surgical equipment that can fit in a box and can be taken to a village. Do you understand? Where it can be set up and it can work without direct access to power. And for us, we imagine that healthcare has to be, all our hospitals must look like 90210. Meanwhile, that's not our context. We don't have the power or the manpower to operate devices that look like that. So it's going to take a lot of very practical design thinking to solve healthcare problems. But what I can assure you is that whoever is able to do it at a reasonable cost is definitely, if the person is not rich, the person will be powerful. It's one or the other. Because if you can imagine, if you have a hospital in every village, there's a hospital I learned about called the Narayana Healthcare Center. It's in India. It's in almost every village in India. I mean, that guy can sway elections, right? Imagine somebody that sets up a small clinic like that in every village in Kwara, governor should be afraid of that person. Because all the person has to say is, see what they are doing to me. Oh. And you remember that your brother or your sister or your whatever was sick, and that was the only place that they could get care. And you're able to bring down the costs so low. So there is a big room for innovation in healthcare, but I find that, unfortunately, most of the innovators in healthcare are still wearing a Western cap or a Western lens when it comes to actually designing solutions that work at scale in our environments. They believe in big investments in tertiary institution hospitals, plug to power. They believe in, doctor is king, every hospital must have a doctor, all those types of mindsets limit our thinking around healthcare solutions that can scale. But I think it's a matter of time, whether we're going to do it ourselves or AI will do it for us. At some point, people will find a solution to their problems. That's my belief.
Thank you for that response, As an add-on, we also need to understand that healthcare, it's high impact. And it's important that we try, even if we don't get it right. At least we'll have data on what not to do, on what will not work. Thank you. Number 4, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Muhammad Abdul Qadir. I am into hardware product design. I'm also into renewable energy. So my question is that for a startup, as a startup founder that is actually seeking growth, which is better, strategic business partnership or financial investment?
Financial what?
Financial investment.
Okay, fantastic. So that's a very sharp question, and I know the answer already, but I want to explain why. So I think the first thing you must understand is that the most important person in any business is a customer. Even if you get financial investment, all financial investment is, whether it's equity or debt, is basically somebody giving you money to figure out how to serve a customer before they pay you. Now, if you receive that investment and you don't have a customer, what that means is that you're eroding your equity. And actually, a lot of people think equity is grants or equity is cheap. Equity is not cheap. Equity is the most expensive form of capital. Reason being that, for example, I run a venture capital firm. If I give you 100,000, right? I may leave you alone, but my expectation of good is not to get 100,000 back, but to get $1 million back. Do you understand? If I borrowed you that money, depending on how many years, at most I will collect 40% a year from you. But if you count it, it will not reach $1 million. Maybe you will end up around $350,000, right? So equity is more expensive. And you know what? Whenever I don't get that result of $1 million, right, I write you to zero. Because my model is that of every 10 investments I make, I only need 2 or 3 to succeed. Now, you may take that $100,000 and go and use it to jackpot or whatever you think $100,000 is. But here's the problem, right? If I had an inkling that $100,000 would have gotten me $1 million or more, I actually must reserve $1 million for you in additional investments. So that $100,000, if you get to $1 million, I will give you another $1 million. Do you understand what I'm saying? But that from that 1 million, I'm expecting now for you to get to 100 million. I don't know, do you understand where we are going? Because a lot of people don't really understand what investment is. Left to me, if I don't need money, I won't take it. Because you see, if you give a customer a $100,000 service, and the customer gives you $100,000, you have finished the transaction. If you like, take that $100,000 and fly to the moon. Nobody will ask you question. It's your money. So long as you have delivered the service. But if I give you $100,000, I want you to give me back $1 million. Do you understand the difference? So, in any situation that brings any kind of investment, and one of the secrets I used at Flutterwave when we were growing, raising money, especially when we were now a hot company, everybody wanted to invest. I made sure, I think I'm the only company in the world, Flutterwave is the only company in the world that has both MasterCard and Visa as investors. Right? Why did I do that? I wasn't looking for their money. If I tell you how much, maybe Visa put in a little bit more because they came late, but I think MasterCard invested just $500K in a $20 million round. I just wanted their name. I didn't need anything from them. So, and they didn't just give us their name. They gave us their name. They gave us MPG. Those of you that are in payments, they gave us the MasterCard payment gateway for free. And they were promoting us to all the banks. So I wasn't interested in their money. I was interested in the strategic business partnerships. Because the money must be paid back. But you see those customers, once they've paid their money and you deliver the service, your relationship is just to repeat it again. That's all.
Thank you for that, E. As an add-on to that, it is important to remember that a strategic business partner is giving you an opportunity to leverage other people's resources at little or no cost to you, while a financial investment is at a high cost to you. Can we have number 5, please?
Good evening. My name is Animasha Ibrahim. I'm the founder of IBF Farm and Agro Commodity. Just like the number three speaker said, so I want to come in as a procurement man. We are into procuring commodity. So there are some environment we go to across the border town, like Chikanda. There's another one along Ajashek, going towards the Kayama too as well. So there are some certain times we have difficulty reaching out to this farmer until we send somebody down there, because we can know what exactly amount of tonnage they are having. And then when it comes to logistics, you can see what is happening in Mokwatu now. The road there is damaged. Trucks can't come in. So where do technology comes in, and where do AI come in as well?
Fantastic. Yeah. That's a great question. So, I was having a thought about this the other day, and I was thinking to myself, again, these are all stopgaps. At the end of the day, there's nothing beats infrastructure. Look at where we are, right? If we didn't have a space like this, we would go and be doing this in one restaurant. I can take 10 people or something. So, again, my argument is not that we should ignore building roads that work or building connectivity in those villages. But at the same time, technologies like drones, for example, can allow us to go to certain communities and see what's going on. That might even be advanced. Just giving somebody in that community the digital literacy skills, you understand, to be able to take a video on a predetermined schedule can be the solution to your problem in terms of the information. And That if you built an app for that person that allowed the person to take a video of the harvest, or you used a satellite information system to geolocate the harvest and whatever, you would be able to estimate using some very simple algorithms how many trucks you would need without even having to go there. Do you understand what I'm saying? So there's a lot of very interesting, if you're thinking about solving the problem, you'll be able to do that. Now, even when you're talking about a bridge, you see, at the end of the day, a bridge can be built. It's true. A bridge can be built. It's an engineering thing. It's a load-bearing capacity problem. I'm sure in that community, there are trees. Abi? I'm sure in that community, they have able-bodied young men. If an engineer was there, an engineer will be able to look at the situation, dig some ditches or tunnels or trenches that will be able to reduce the flood, right? And be able to devise a makeshift bridge. But one of the biggest problems that we have in Nigeria is that whenever we have a problem, we have a tendency of going to the least competent person to help us solve that problem. And you know that person is government. Government. If you have a serious problem, it's one thing to appeal to the government. You understand what I'm saying? That's fine. But when have you ever seen somebody appeal to the government and the next day the government came and solved that problem for the person? Have you ever seen it? Eh? So why do people keep appealing to the government? I call government an idol. Right? It does not hear, it does not see, it does not talk. You understand what I'm saying? Now, even when government wants to be responsive, because it's not that there are not people in government that want to be responsive, but government is a bureaucracy. Do you understand? It's a system. You can, if you have a legislator or somebody like that, you can solve problems systematically with governments. Do you understand what I'm saying? But to solve a problem that you have today and be waiting for somebody in Abuja or in Ilorin to come and solve your problem, you are a joker. You are just wasting your time. Within our communities, if we organize ourselves well, there are 85% of issues we can solve. Just with a little bit of collective action, education, and the willingness to look on the internet these days. And if you don't have internet, you can find somebody who knows what they are doing and pull together. But again, the biggest barrier to those types of action is everybody boils every problem down to money. And sadly, money is the only thing that government has. And you know why government has money? Because they print it. It's not because they make it. It's true. Am I lying? Government prints money. Oh. I hope you know that. They don't make money in Aso Rock. Eh? They just print it and they give it to everybody. So, at the end of the day, that money that they print, they are still going to look for an engineer who has a head like yourself to find a solution to a problem in your own community. Because the only thing they have is money. They don't have any solution to any problem. They use the money to buy solutions. So why not short circuit the process and keep the money? Do you understand what I'm saying? Find a solution to your problem, organize yourselves, implement that solution, and then let government come and see how well you are doing with that solution. Maybe other communities will now give you that money. Do you understand what I'm saying? That you want to go and collect from government to solve your own problem. But it requires us to rethink of things. So you, as a commodity trader, you know your bread is going to that village to collect commodities. The bridge broke. You're asking, what should you do? don't fix the bridge now. Leave it alone. Shouldn't you at least put a percentage of your trade sales aside to say, let me reduce the amount of wahala it will take for me to build this road, to get even direct labor, to just put sand there. You are going there every day, oh. You are going there every day to pick up goods. But it has not occurred to you that 10% of your profits on those commodities can fix that road, even if it's just to throw gravel on the ground. Abba. I'm sorry, yes, you can say what you want to say. Wait, do you know there's something called a tax credit that you can, obviously not paying taxes, but if, no, I'm just kidding, I'm just joking, I'm just pulling your legs, but I'm just saying that you can get a tax credit for fixing the road. You can, it's allowed. If it's a federal road, you can get a tax credit. There's nothing wrong with you organizing all your other commodity traders and saying, guys, this road is our livelihood. Let's put aside 10% of our profits and fix this road. In other countries, that's what they do. But we like to copy the things we like from the West and leave the ones that are a little bit too difficult. There's no way that a company in Germany will see that they need a road to get to their farms, and they will not do something about that road. Even ordinary Dangote, Dangote that is just here, you see what he's doing. No, it's ordinary because at the end of the day, the amount of that he's spending on fixing the road to his own refinery in tax credits, right? It's a big chunk of money for even his size of business. He could be like everybody else and do business like how they do business. And say, why am I fixing the road for this refinery? Tolaram is next door. Where is their money? He could say that. Abi, isn't that what you're saying? Yeah? But he knows that, I'm transporting fuel. If I build fuel refinery and there's no road for the fuel to reach the people that are using it, I might as well have put $1 billion trap island somewhere. So anyway, I don't want it to be a back and forth, but I'm just saying that we all need to change the way we think, right? Calling on government to solve issues where government does not have much to bring to the table apart from their money is not a good thing. We have to be able to lead and organize ourselves. Yes. Yes.
Entering the states.
And let me tell you why. And can I say something? I want to tell you a story actually. And but let me tell you a story. So you pay 30,000 to 60,000 naira because not the commodity traders haven't come together and said, government, right? This money that we pay you, right? First of all, let's pay you officially. Because I know that normally you just give the driver the money and different people are collecting it. Wouldn't it have made sense for all of you to come together as an association and say, government, let us collect this money from our members. Let us give you this money so you can fix the road. I'll give you a good example of where that happened. In Lagos, ride sharing used to be a problem, right? Every time Lasma will stop you, why are you in Uber? Police will stop you, why are you in Uber? You know what all the ride sharing companies did? They wrote regulation for themselves. And they went and submitted it to Lagos House of Assembly. In the regulation, they put there that 30 naira from every trip will go to Lagos Roads Development Levy. You understand what I'm saying? That money, I think at one time, I heard, I don't know, that it was up to 7 billion naira a day. That money. Just that 30 naira on every trip. If you can collect more than that, and I don't think you will spend as much as Lagos to fix a road. You have direct labor, you understand what I'm saying? So it's all about being able to think through these problems and actually find creative ways to solve it. I don't think government is unreasonable, but I also think people have the wrong expectations of government. They are just things that government cannot do, no matter how much it wants to do them. Because getting it done, see, every dollar that comes out of government probably costs 50 cents to deploy. Do you understand? If you guys collected that kind of levy and you said, okay, you know what, government, this levy we've collected, we'll use it to fix our road. The remainder we'll give you. I don't think that any government will look at that and say that's a bad deal. If they have some oversight over the cost. You get what I'm saying? So it's about creative problem solving.
Response E, I was kind of enjoying the back and forth. As an add-on, I would like to say my first takeaway from E's story, the first story shared, is about if something is bothering you, you attempt to fix it. You take responsibility for it before passing it on. And that is where a lot of entrepreneurs miss it. A lot of people refuse to take responsibilities for their situation. They focus on what the ideal should be instead of what the reality is. So it's always important to be mindful of our reality and develop solutions around our reality. When we see Dangote fix Obajano Road, it's not because they love the people of Obajano. It's because it takes its business further. Thank you.
Speaking on, once again, speaking on the expectations of governments, I'm going to use this hub we're sitting in right now as another example. You can say all day long that, you want government to set up a hub, you want government to set up a hub. Yeah, fine. They can have the intention to set up a hub, but does the system really allow for a fully functional hub to be possible under government control? That's another realistic question we have to ask. And here in Kwara State, what we did was we understood, okay, yes, the government wants to set up a hub, but government is not in the business of technology or running a hub. That is why you see this logo here with IHS. Government built this hub completely to a certain extent and handed it over to another organization that knows this business better. If we were sitting down and waiting for government to fully complete and run this hub, none of us would be here today. So we need to understand where government's specialty stops and where those of private citizens continue. Thank you.
Are you satisfied now? Thank you. Number 6, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm moderator and our speaker. My name is Sophia Tsoni, a law student from Kwara State University. So, at the heart of your work, you believe that innovation can scale from unlikely places. And whilst talking to us about that, you mentioned that policies create markets. At the same time, policies also affect emerging technologies, policies affect the software, policies affect the hardware. So my question is, how do you think legal regulations in Nigeria can evolve to support the kind of innovation ecosystem that you've been preaching to us about and that you envision? How does legal regulation in Nigeria, how does it affect that, especially in cities like Kwara State, especially in states like Kwara State, Ilorin to be precise? Thank you.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic question. You know, I always have a lot of respect for my learned colleagues because I'm a failed lawyer. So I spent 1 week in law school and ran away. So, well done. One of the things that, there are many tools and templates for how policy creates markets. And I think usually when people look at emerging technologies, what they don't realize is that for any emerging technology to scale, people have to have a norm around how to interact with it. Otherwise, they will stay away. And for good reason. One of the things that, for example, I'm sorry, I'm going to task you people a bit. I've been praising you since, so you have to forgive me. Anytime I come to a hotel in Ilorin, they want to take my passport. They take my passport. They want to snap a picture of my passport page. I've stopped fighting them, but you know it's illegal. It's actually illegal. It's not supposed, you're not supposed to take a picture of somebody's passport page, except you're a DPCO. Do you understand? A data protection controller. And I'm very sure these organizations are not licensed. But because there is no enforcement, because there is no tools, because a smart and enterprising person would have created a tool for KYC for the hotel. Because it's not because they are just taking a picture of your passport, they're not using it for anything. They're not even reporting it to anybody. I know. Because I asked them, what are you going to do with this picture? I say, they said we should take it. A smart person would have gone to all the hotels and said, here is a software that when you take a picture, it will help you validate that the person that you are hosting is not wanted on any list, and submit the person's data to a DPCO. Then you will go and get the DPCO license, and you will be the one that is holding that customer's data. If you now get very innovative later, you can start doing point system, etc., because you are legitimately holding on to that data with the customer's consent. Do you understand what I'm saying? But it takes builders to be able to recognize the opportunities that policy creates, right? And to be able to now drive enforcement of it. Now, secondary from that, I think a low-hanging fruit for our ecosystem, which I've been disturbing Temi about, is the Kwara Startup Act, which he says is unstable. So every day you see him, remind him that we have to pass our Startup Act. But again, even though we are domesticating a national act, we also have to start asking ourselves, what are we going to put in our own version of the act, separate from what maybe a Lagos would have put, separate from maybe what a Castina would put, that would enable us. For example, we're a state with a lot of educational institutions, right? What are we doing to encourage more of these educational institutions to come up with innovations? That is something we can put in our act. What are we doing to protect intellectual property? When you come up with that beautiful hardware idea, what happens to that hardware idea? How is it protected? Right? That needs to go in the policy. That needs to go in the act. Right? How will angel investors benefit from investing in Kwara startups? That needs to go in the act. How should businesses interact with startups, for example? That needs to go in the act. So there's a lot of room for legal innovation, because a technology without guardrails becomes a danger. And that's why you're seeing people talking about AI and so on, because they recognize that, look, AI does a lot of fantastic things, but AI can also be destructive. So how do you regulate? For example, if somebody goes to AI because they have your personal health records and starts asking AI, putting your personal health records inside AI, right? So that the whole world knows, because anything that goes inside AI becomes public domain knowledge. So they need to regulate the AI, tell the AI, come on, if you see somebody's personally identifiable information, you cannot suck it in. It's not part of your data set, even if you came upon it one way or the other. If, for example, an employee of a computer firm a software coder, takes the code base of the firm and copies and pastes it inside Git code. I mean, what are people calling it? Because they want to generate some code. Is that legal? Is that allowed? There should be consequences for somebody that decides to do that. So for any emerging technology to scale, and that's one of the key insights that I've learned, any emerging technology you invent, your surest protection is to codify it in law. I'll end with this story. One of the first things that when we came up with the idea for Flutterwave, one of the first things I made a decision to do was to look for a chairman. And I looked very strategically for a chairman. In fact, I don't remember what state I was in. I had to go and look for him. It was one small state. I went and got the former deputy governor of the central bank to be our chairman. And one of the first things he said to me when I pitched him and I begged him to come and be our chairman was that he said, look, I don't mind being your chairman, but you have to be compliant. Unfortunately for you, you don't have any rules to be compliant with. But that's an opportunity. Go talk to so and so and so and come up with a framework for regulating yourself. And that became PSSP guidelines and PSB guidelines. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that was what created an opportunity for payment service. There was no license like that before. If you remember, that license came out in 2016. The first person was Remita. We hid ourselves well so that we won't be the first. And they gave some other companies that people don't remember before they gave us. Even IMTO license, same thing. When said, people, we are moving money from abroad to Nigeria. It's not a mobile money. What is it? I don't know. Can we create rules for it? Send me an exposure draft. Till today, some of my biggest companies, Rideshare created Move. In fact, and I learned that from my first company, Andela. You see, when I started Andela, I was very naive. So I just started a company and just started training people. That time, if you go and look on the internet, we used to be called Andela Institute. One day, people from NAPTEP came to my office to look for me. My office was on Heba Macaulay that time, on an upstairs. They came to our office and scared the people and said they were going to shut down this illegal training polytechnic. I said, which one is polytechnic? They said, why do you have institutes in your name? Are you a polytechnic? I said, sorry, sir. Sorry, sir, I'm not a polytechnic. Don't worry, everybody go home. I removed their institute from my name. But you know what I now did? I was being clever by half, but it worked. I now decided to start paying all the developers. Yeah? I'll pay everything. They used to earn 85,000 naira. I'll pay. In the press, people thought I was paying people to code because I wanted to pay people to code. In reality, I was paying people to code so I could say they are my employees. And that way, anything I want to do with my employees, I can what? I can do. So, except you want to run an illegal business, you have to give thought to the environment that you are operating in. The mistake most people make is they think that that environment is only for somebody in Ilorin or in Abuja to shape. But if you have the right relationships, that regulatory document can have your fingers all over it. But you must engage. Thank you.
That was Dave. Please, can we keep... can we clap again? Can we give him a round of applause again? Different situations and ensure that you get your desired outcome. We'll be talking about this, by the way. Can we have number 7, please?
Good evening. My name is Mariam Jimo, and I'm a venture lawyer.
Thank you for mentioning the Kwara Startup Act. Mr. Kolawole, if you're putting together a team, you can call me. I'm willing to volunteer for that, the Startup Act.
Volunteers.
To cost.
Yeah, but my question, right? I think that to a reasonable extent, no, to a large extent, we know what your personal disposition to an emerging ecosystem like Quora is. But what is Future Africa's disposition to emerging ecosystems, right? And also, what would that, assuming that it's a positive, what would that support look like beyond the money? And what is the one thing that would consider the IC to put the money down?
That will what?
Consider the IC at Future Africa to put the money down.
Okay. I can start from your last question. The beautiful thing about Future Africa, unlike most other funds, we only have 2 IC members, and I have a veto. So I got that. Now I can tell you what I would consider to bring the money, to put money down. Now, you see, in certain markets, right, people have exposure to customers by default. So like if you're in Lagos and you're a fintech, your customers are next door to you, right? But if you're in Kwara and you're a fintech, right, your customers are small businesses. I mean, sorry to say, but the whole GDP of Kwara is like Flutterwave's daily volume. You understand what I'm saying? So I would be foolish to benchmark a Kwara fintech founder the way I would a Lagos fintech founder. Now, what would it take? What am I looking for when I'm looking at innovation in Kwara? I am looking for unique solutions to problems that are born out of insights that a Lagosian can never have. For example, a Lagosian does not really understand what land is. Like beyond a certain concept of CFO, but like when you say, oh, I have 1 acre, Lagosians talk in plots. Do you understand what I'm saying? A Lagosian does not really understand what a farm is. It doesn't understand how farmers behave or what farming looks like. Those are, if you're building innovations, than places that look like Lagos. So if you come up with an innovation that works in Kwara, I know I can take it to Niger. I know I can take it to Castina. I know I can take it to Jigawa. I know I can take it to Bauchi. I know I can take it to Jos. Particularly if it's something that has to do with agriculture. Because despite how amazing tech is, 15% of our GDP, agriculture is still 20% of our GDP. But it cannot just be a toy. Do you understand what I'm saying? It has to be something that is patentable. It has to be something that has real intellectual depth, and something that when we take it and we say, okay, we are going to mass manufacture this thing, there will be a market for that thing. So it's unfortunate that you're being held to a slightly higher standard than Lagos. Yes, somebody in Lagos can come and sell me one fintech, although I won't even buy. But you can come and tell me, oh, you can do fintech, you've run around, you know all the bank people, you know all the small businesses, and I'll believe you. But if you came from Kwara, I'm looking for a solution that mirrors and matches, you know, like where you're coming from, such that a Lagos person cannot compete with you on that. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So that's sort of what it is. Now, what kind of support are we giving? So I'm here every last week of the month. Most months, I'm here. And what we're going to start doing office hours. Meaning that if Temi sees something that makes sense, right, and looks like it's promising, I would be scheduled to meet with you so that I can understand what you're building and guide you appropriately. The innovation is the hard part, but the important part is how that innovation is guided into a partner that can help it scale. And that's where my expertise is. Do you understand? Because I know all the people you would need to talk to, and I have relationships with them, and I can help that company to be able, like if you made, for example, a drip irrigation system. I don't know how many commercial farmers do you know that have 16 hectares. You may not know many, but I know at least 4 or 5 within my own circle of friends. Israeli, Lebanese, Iranian. I know all of them. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I can take you to them and say, this technology will give you this measurable outcome if it's proven, and immediately you have $1 million customer. Do you understand what I mean? So those are the kind of things that we can do. And people will not be afraid. Like if you showed up at their door, at their office with your small invention, they will look at you and say, even if this thing works, where is the money to make this thing blow? So depending on who you meet, they will do one of two things. They'll say, just leave the lady alone, I beg. Don't disturb her. Or they will steal what you have done. Because you don't have the corporate cover. They can't trust you with the innovation in terms of translating that innovation to scale. We have experience doing that for a lot of companies, right? So that's what we bring to the table. And I would say this particularly for the university students. I think one of the things that makes Kwara, Ilorin in particular, a fantastic place is because of the number of institutions where I think the second largest density of students after Ogun State in the country, right? So, but you know, Ogun State is they have a lot of very, very bright people. So they're very powerful people. So I just came back to my house. So we can leverage this hub to be able to do cross-institutional research. Landmark has some expertise on agriculture. How can that interface with technology? I know Ilorin has a very strong engineering department, particularly electrical electronics. How can that interface when it comes to technology? Lautech, Bomosho is also very strong. How can that interface? You understand what I'm saying? All these places are within 2-3 hours from here. You have a dam in Jeba. You have Asa Dam. You understand what I'm saying? So there is a lot that's within here, a lot of deep tech innovation that can happen from here in Ilorin because you have full control of your environment and you have the intellectual capital, which is more important than my tiny financial capital to do that. One of the most practical opportunities you guys will have. So we're currently running the Africa Deep Tech Challenge. And IHS, Ilorin Innovation Hub, Future Africa, and CC Hub, we've all come together and sponsored it. It's a Pan-African challenge, but we're looking for opportunities to put Ilorin on the map. So the people at CC Hub are going to be working with you, right, to help you to be able to prepare your innovations for this challenge, right? And the challenge is about resource-constrained computing. So, all of you that have old laptops, PS5 or PS3, maybe PS5 is too much, PS1, PS2, do you know that your PS1 and your PS2 have GPUs inside? How many of you know that? In fact, there are people that are they are buying those things now, piecing them apart, taking out the GPUs and creating servers. Do you know that? Do you know that your internet is slow because you are not caching a lot of the sites that you visit regularly? Now, I'm getting into a bit of technical speak here, so I know I might lose the wrong people. But for those who know what I'm talking about, even a practical example, okay, how can we speed up the internet that's here by leveraging, networks better? Do you get what I'm trying to say? So identifying use cases for this resource constrained computing. When you go to a village primary healthcare center, right? They don't have money to buy desktop and computer. Do you understand? Is it possible for you to find a way to just take out maybe phone board, the board of a phone, and use that to create a powerful computer? You know, those things are very powerful. A powerful computer that can power a primary healthcare center. Do you understand? Can you find an innovative way of turning television screens into monitors? Those small 15-inch television screens into monitors. Those are the kind of very innovative ideas that I want to be seeing from Ilorin, not fintech apps. Just leave that for our eco. You understand what I'm saying? They have the money to waste. We don't have. So, you know, the first thing my father will always tell me, say, more or more anything one share. You understand? So we are not rich Lagosians. We are resourceful, get your hands dirty people in Kwara. So we're going to do resourceful, get your hand dirty things. And that's what will attract attention of the world. I don't think we're going to build a unicorn from Ilorin by building Flutterwave. No, it's not possible. You understand what I'm saying? We are going to build a unicorn from Ilorin probably because of some intellectual property or IP that we create that is one of a kind. And as a lawyer, I want you to keep your eyes open for those types of innovations. They need to be protected. As a lawyer, you as somebody in a university environment, you should be very familiar with ability to file patents, ability to file trademarks. That's when I was a lawyer. Yes, there are university people all around, all of them doing deep research, coming up with. I don't want the kind of lawyer that files CAC. We don't need them in Kwara State. We can do it online. Do you understand what I'm saying? But if, for example, we say, if you register your innovation in a Kwara enterprise company, right, we are going to give you the ability to apply for patents, because that's one of the things I'm pushing for in the Kwara Innovation, Kwara Startup Act. But Kwara Innovation Act, can we register patents here that are recognizable all over the world? You understand what I'm saying? Or at least in Kwara, as a starting point to making them recognizable everywhere. So these are the kind of ideas I want us to be coming up with. You know, there's a place, you know, a lot of people talk a lot about Silicon Valley, but one of the things that people don't realize is that one of the most important companies on the internet was a company called Netscape. Who can guess where Netscape was built? Where was Netscape built? No, it was built in Urbana-Champaign, far away from Silicon Valley. And this is one of the most critical innovations of the 21st century. Do you understand what I'm saying? Without Netscape, you will not have browsers. Without browsers, none of us will be here. So great things can be built from a small place. You just have to change your mindset.
Thank you for that, E. Can we have number 8, please?
They've told me to keep it short, so sorry.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I'm Patrick, co-founder and CEO of Builder. And I know entrepreneurship is both art and a science. So my question is about the science. In your years of experience building Andela, Flutterwave, and of course, recently, Future Africa, what are the patterns that you've observed that makes a successful, in a person, I will make him build a successful enterprise? I'm also asking this particularly from the lens of an investor. What do you look out for in founders? I will give you this knowledge. I know this will be successful. So generally, the patterns you've observed, both in your personal practice and of course, in identifying businesses that scale. Thank you so much, sir.
Sure. I'm going to be very fast because they told me now that my time is up. So forgive me. I can always go in depth in a blog post or something, but I will try and keep it short. So first of all, right, I think the biggest thing is clarity of thought. The best founders have a very clear idea of what they want to build and why. And that idea is not diluted by the opinions of others. In fact, it is often counterintuitive. So whenever I see a founder, the first question I ask is, why do you want to build this company? And if they cannot tell me in one or two sentences, this is why, I just shut down because I just realize that that person is trying to ape somebody else. They don't really know why they are building it. The second thing is the founders, the best founders and the best founding teams recognize their weaknesses. They are extremely self-aware, maybe to a fault. Do you understand? And when they are building something that they really care about, they look for people that can complement them. So the kind of founder that believes they are an all-rounder, the kind of founder that believes that they know everything and they are going to look for subordinates. You know, the kind of founders that are very eager to call themselves solo founders. Those types of founders rarely ever succeed because everybody who has succeeded recognizes that I'm good at some things, I'm horrible at some things. And they look for people that complement them. For example, I can sell Kwara State. I can sell anything. Anything. I can sell water to a well. But if you tell me to code, you go suffer. You will never get that thing. So I never build the software. I go and sell. Right? That's number two. Number three, they understand something about the customer that everybody either overlooks, ignores, or doesn't believe. They can predict their customer's next move. When, like, one of the best minds in payments is a guy called Tony. I don't know anybody that understands Iyalata more than Tosin. Like, he knows exactly, he can predict their next 5 moves and how they will react to something. He can predict it in his sleep. That level of customer obsession where you can read your customer's mind, where they are saying, are you sure you are not reading from our strategy? If you're not at that level, you'll never be able to build a big company. But I'm just going to stop there. So those 3 things, I've never seen fantastic founders who cannot do those 3 things.
Thank you, E. So as a founder, you need to be able to predict the future. Literally just become an oracle. Can we have number 9, please?
All right, thank you, Iyin. Thank you so much. Zumah, thank you for shading my shade too. I just finished speaking somewhere, so the light is so much. Well, thank you for this opportunity. So I had some things I noted down here, but Iyin had, spoken to them. He's a tech prophet, so he's always prophesying. All right, but I think my questions would be directed to Temi, right? So I'm trying to see how do we, for people who are, I have a real estate company, right? But my passion really is in human development. And to that end, I've done a lot of work, trainings with the World Bank, United Nations, and all of that. I live in Lagos, but I started my first real estate company in Kwara State. And that, gave me this kind of understanding of the value chain and the ecosystem. Getting to Lagos, it was just so easy for me to penetrate because, they don't do things, So I'm directing this question to Temi. For those of us who are interested in, working with you to see how we can speed up the scale of idea generation, because I believe the rate at which we can generate ideas, test them out and, see which ones would work, which ones would fail, and, see which ones are actually viable. So I want to know, how do we, bring that up? Because for me, as my, real estate practice, we have this solution for land verification, right? But at the end of the day, we still have to go through the analog routes of how do you get people to secure their investments, verify properties. When you go to the Bureau of Land, they will still give you files and all of that. So I have a lot of ideas around PropTech because the real estate gap in Nigeria alone is $400 billion. So I think there's a lot of capital that we can unlock in that, space. So I'm trying to know, how do we connect and, bring these innovations into the space? Thank you.
How do we connect? Okay, let's connect right now. So we've connected. But that was not a very direct question, because I think the main question out of everything I heard was, how do you get involved if you have a lot of ideas? You need to filter through all your ideas, find the one that is most feasible, that you think is most worth your time to get into. There's so many people that have ideas, but they are stuck doing too many things, and they never really get anything done. I would advise you to narrow down your number of ideas, the many ideas, do a list, try to do some feasibility studies, ask questions about different things. Which one is the most pressing problem? Which one is the most scalable problem? Is the problem unique to just Kwara? Is it a common problem in Kwara and so many other states? And the one that you think is most valuable or has the most potential, go for it. Right now, it's very easy to build. If you can't learn how to build yourself, find some young co-founder or partner that is a good builder. Get an MVP, test your product, launch. I always say launch because we are too focused sometimes on getting an investor that we forget that even investors are in the business for money. They are not just investing for the sake of investment. We're all focused on the wrong thing sometimes. We just want to build something because we want investment. But what will you do with that investment? Are you going to throw their money away, or are you going to multiply it for them? So build something valuable that solves a very, scalable problem. Test it, launch, get feedback from customers, your first few users. I can't really say I will get involved in your idea stage, because like Iyin said, I think many of us in this ecosystem also have to know our place. And I'll tell you my place right now. I am here in the trenches, in the local institutions, with everybody talking to, I literally talk to so many young founders. They rub ideas by me, I give guidance. But at the end of the day, I'm the one that will pass many of those bright ideas onto my chairman on stage here. And say, he's also in the trenches with me, to be honest, even though he doesn't have to be, he's also on ground level. But that's where I am. I know my role. Once you can come up with something, I can guide or give advice, but I can't really help you pick which idea you feel you want to pursue. So once you have that and you have a product, okay, I know you want to ask another question. We already said we'll see later. So we don't have to finish everything here. Okay.
Something I think will be very important, because there are going to be a lot of people like you who are coming in from Lagos, from diaspora, and it's something we'll discuss later, but I just want to point out two things. One, consider building solutions to your problems here, right? So you have a number of challenges or opportunities in your business. Bring the ideas. These are real problems in my business, because sometimes I find that a lot of our developers are limited by their exposure to actual real problems. Most people, the only problems they've ever seen are problems that are shared on social media, i.e. somebody else launched something. So a big problem oftentimes, particularly in smaller ecosystems, is that you're walking past problems every day, but because you've never met a customer, you've never really sat down with Iya Yusuf and said, Iya Yusuf, this business, what is your biggest headache? What is actually your biggest headache that technology can help you solve? So whenever people like him can come and share those headaches, it will be helpful. I think you have a duty to do it. That's how you can help us. Maybe you can sponsor a prop tech hackathon, put 10 problems, 10 challenges on the board. The CC Hub team are world class. Where are they? CC Hub. They have run away. He stepped out. Okay. CC Hub team, I think, should also get involved in just, listening. You can sponsor a prop tech hackathon and people can come and hack. By the end of the hackathon, you get one or two that are viable and scalable that you can push forward. And I think that's the way to start. Early ecosystems are developed not by building startups, but by building projects, actually. You build projects. If your first startup is successful, is Yahoo, it cannot be real. You understand what I'm saying? It must be, you are doing magic. Do you understand? And if you understand what I mean, we are not betting here. You have to, it's a muscle. So if you give them these tasks, some of them that are smart, young, pick up a challenge, build it, show you, it looks good, you pay them something good for it, you move on to the next one. And they keep doing that until they build the muscle and they learn how a business will work. I think that's very important.
Thank you for the add-on, even though his question was for Temi. Can we have number 10, please? No.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anas, and okay, my name is Anas, and I'm a product engineer, and I'm a first-time founder myself. Although I'm building in the blockchain and Web3 space, but I have like 3 questions for Iyin himself. So the first one is, what are investors looking for now? You mentioned that you have Accelerate. I know I'm aware of that. You have Accelerate, your own venture, firm, something like that. So I'm curious what investors are looking for now. Because the reason why I asked that is because I have a brother who is also from Ilorin here, but he's studying at BUK. And he has built a startup, has been running for the past 2 years now, a campus-based food delivery and essential system that people have been using, and they've done over 15K deliveries, over 20 million in GMV, and over 1,700 users. But in the past few months now, because the way he has been doing it, he bootstrapped it from funds from us, friends, family. It has been bootstrapped for the past 2 years now. But in the past few months, it has been really hard to, payrolls, servers, a lot of things that need to be sorted out. So, and we've actually sought through investors, going through venture firms, but what they are asking for is, some are giving us their attention reward, they are giving us attention, answering our question, but at the end of the day, they are not giving us what we want. So I'm curious what investors are looking for now, which will also go to my second question. Is there a standard for innovation now? So is there a standard for innovation? The reason why I'm saying this is that the old YC knowledge that we know are almost not existing again. The reason why I say that is that almost what they are looking for now is something disruptive, and there are 1001 problems that are fundamental still. They are looking for AI, they are looking for this and that. So I'm still curious, as the standard for innovation increase now. So, and the last one is actually something personal. So I want to ask that, has there been a time when you are faced with choosing between survivor and what you're building? How did you approach that? Survivor, what I mean by survivor is that, let's say for instance, you have a job, you have to pay people, pay servers, AWS, everything like that. So has there been a time you have to choose between your survivor and also what you're building? How did you approach that?
Okay, I'll just answer them very quickly because we're fast spent. The first one is, I don't know what, every investor has a different thing they're looking for. For me, I'm looking at businesses that have a clear trajectory to $1 million in revenue within 18 months and that have the capacity to scale to $100 million of revenue over the next 5 years. Very clear. If I don't see those type of numbers, I'm not touching. And it's tough for me to believe that a company that does delivery on campus will be able to hit those numbers. So usually I wouldn't go for something like that. However, I think that one of the mistakes we often make is thinking of venture as the only type of funding, right? If the business is profitable, right, there might be other kinds of funding. There might be other angel investors who are willing to do profit sharing. There might be other people who are willing to invest. For example, you can set up in a university with somebody from that environment money and give them a share of profits. Just keep it very profitable and everything, right? So don't just look at venture, because my venture, so just to give you context, right? My venture fund is a $20 million fund. One company, which I would invest roughly about $1.5 million to $2 million in, must return all the money. One. So if I don't invest in the right one, and I'm only investing in about, maybe 30 companies in total, or 40 companies in total. So if I don't invest in the right one, I lose the opportunity to return capital to my investors. And that has never happened before. So I'm very, very selective. My minimum check size is $250,000, very expensive money, and it's not for everybody, right? So that's just the answer. Standard for innovation. Look, Y Combinator is not Nigeria. They are innovating for themselves. Right now, their biggest issue is productivity. For us here in Nigeria, we also have a productivity challenge, but we're trying to figure out how can we do the things that we've always done better and faster. You understand what I'm saying? And that's why I'm very particular about this intersection of software and hardware. How can we lower waste, for example, of energy, right? How can we lower waste of food? Because we can anticipate harvest. Because we can anticipate harvest, we can get raw materials from where they're being grown to where they can be processed, and we can anticipate the growth in yields. Those are the kind of problems I'm excited about solving, because I know if I solve it, if somebody has solved it in a place like Ilorin, we can actually take that to other parts of the world, right, where everybody's looking for it. I don't think I can compete with Silicon Valley on the ChatGPT wrapper game. I've not invested in anything like that. Maybe except they are doing local languages where I know Silicon Valley has no interest, but I know there are huge real world applications in this part of the world. So again, it's not about the standard of innovation, it's about the usefulness of the innovation, and that is context dependent. Finally, I think that was all the questions. Let's take the last gentleman and then we close, please. Myself at the tire. I've drank, don't worry.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma. So, my name is David Abayomi, and I run an agricultural recycling brand. So basically, we get waste materials from villages, then we recycle them and supply them to industrial companies that use them for biofuel, and also as an additive for the production of animal feed. So basically, having to solve that major problem, because small-scale farmers, they really don't make maximum profit from their produce. So what we now do is we are like that bridge that helps them with the waste materials, because when we get these waste materials from where they store it and all, we buy it from them. So basically adding to the profit they would have made if they did their whole processing with maybe gari and some other things. So basically we having to do that, it requires a lot of labor in a way. So my question is, what is your approach to building strong teams and partnerships that really align with the vision of the brand?
That's a good question. What I do when I'm thinking about building strong partnerships, the first thing that I focus a lot on is on my storytelling. And why? Because at the end of the day, you may not know everybody that you need to be able to make this a success. But if you're able to quickly explain the perspective of the farmer and the perspective of the people that you are selling it to, particularly in clear commercial terms, you're going to find that people will reach out to you. You understand? And this is a hack for even passing through people like me. So if you say, look, today a farmer makes 600 naira from selling tomatoes, right? On the other hand, there are all these biofuel companies or animal feed companies that don't need high quality produce. You know, we make we make 100 naira margin by connecting the suppliers to the buyers, right? And we've done 15 ton of them. You know, that is a very simple story. When you tell that story, everybody that is concerned, if it's a good, well-told story, everybody that is concerned will now reach out to say, oh, how can we help you? What can we do to increase it? This is our own interest. So storytelling is really the way to do that. Thank you.
Okay. On this note, we have come to the end of the Fireside Chat, but before we go, I'll be calling on the MD of Ilorin Innovation Hub, Mr. Temi Kolawole, to give... All right. To give the closing remarks. Let's keep putting our hands together for him, please. Let's keep it up, please. He's almost here.
Sorry, I've been running up and down. So I think basically what we're here to really achieve today is to hear directly from somebody who has done everything that we might be aspiring to do. Yes, he's been able to do it on a much larger global scale. I believe everything big started small. This is our own beginning. There will be success stories coming out of Ilorin very soon. I'm very sure about that. Some people are going to get it right. The question is, are you going to be one of those people? It's also an opportunity that needs to be seized in the sense that let's not look at it as, oh, okay, now we're all going to make it. There's work that needs to be done for that to happen. There's work that needs to be done on yourself as a person. How dedicated are you? How consistent are you? How persistent, how hardworking are you? At the team level too, how well can you work with your team? How well are you guys on the same page and in sync? Are you going to keep moving forward when you start whatever projects or startups you have? Or are you going to keep going in circles, fighting over equity, fighting over recognition? Are you going to, even now let's go beyond the team level, if you do get your initial goals, let's say you land your first check, are you going to sit back and think you've made it? Or are you going to keep pushing? So nothing is automatic. It's literally all in your hands. It's up to you. There's so many categories of people I've mentioned. I've mentioned people that would try and fail, some that would give up early. All those would exist even in this ecosystem. It's up to you to make sure you are in that top level of success, to aim for that top level of success where you are the one that will have the good ideas, make the best use of opportunities that come, and have the right mindset all the way through. If you can also notice, I can tell you for a fact that the same mindset that Iyin had when he was in Waterloo in school, he still has it today. He didn't relax or say, oh, well, I've succeeded, I've made it. Let me start chilling, let me start flexing, let me start, showing off. Iyin is the most humble investor that I have met. I don't want to tell you what he told me that made me open my mouth a week ago, but he told me he got on a bike in Ilorin, and it was probably just a funny thing to him, but I was like, okay, how many investors exist that will actually decide to get on a bike? So it's all about mindset. As you grow, as you develop, are you getting more pompous? Are you getting more relaxed? Or are you keeping that same drive you had at the beginning all the way through your journey? So it's, like I said, it's not given or promised or automatic for anybody. It's literally up to you. How well, how far, and how successful your story is. And today was just a day to inspire, to motivate, to clarify a lot of things to people. Obviously, you've asked questions, they've been answered. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself too. As much as there might be a lot of accolades and congrats as to what we've achieved here at the Hub, I still don't think we've done anything yet. Because I know deep down that this is just the beginning. This is not, everything that we've achieved is not my idea or definition of success at all. And I'm not even going to let any of the comments or accolades get anywhere into my head where I lose focus of the real goal, which is to produce successful businesses and startups from Kwara State that will create jobs and solve problems beyond Kwara State. Hopefully a startup that comes out of here will be able to solve problems that will go global, not just regional or national. That's the goal, and I'm not going to rest, I'm not going to sleep or sit back until we achieve that. It also feels like so many things are working in our favor, because just yesterday I received an email back from a law firm that offered free work on the Startup Act, as somebody had offered. We already got a lot of free work from a very reputable law firm here in Nigeria that helped us work on and review the Kwara State Startup Act for free. So now we're going to conclude it, and I can tell everybody here that most likely by the grace of God, before the end of this year, the Kwara Startup and Innovation Law will be a reality. To show you how things are working in our favor, it seems everything we need just keeps coming in our way and is just aligning for us. We also have a relationship with the World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO. We've had some discussions and engagements with them, and I think today's conversation now brings more clarity as to how we need to tie that into the Startup Act to also properly protect all the intellectual property that comes out of here, not just to protect it, but also make sure that it's recognizable on a global scale and complies with international laws. So I'm very optimistic, I'm very excited, and I hope you all share my optimism and excitement. It's time to work. It's not time to smile and sit back. It's time to get our hands dirty, like Iyin has said. We need to get outside, work beyond just building apps alone. Yes, some people will build apps and do well from here, but where the opportunity really lies is offering something that the Lagos ecosystem does not have. I can guarantee you that there's an undiscovered unicorn sitting right here in Kwara State that we need to discover, that we need to find. Those problems exist. And like Iyin said, if a problem can be solved here in Kwara State, it can be solved in most of Nigeria, outside the big cities, where a large part of our population still lies. Money Point was not built for the fancy Lagos Island people. Money Point was built for the local markets, the Yalatas. What do they need? They need money to enter, and they need to hear a loud ping when the money enters, so that they know the transaction. Not that they keep refreshing and refreshing. Has it entered? Has it not entered? They solved real problems. And that's what we're all here to do. We're here to just solve real problems. Nobody is too proud or too big to sit with the direct beneficiaries of whatever you're thinking to build. There's not going to be any time for me to answer a question, but somebody asked and sent a note to me about how he's building a startup in healthcare for pregnant women, blah, blah, blah. But how do they get knowledge of the industry? And the first question I said is that what business do you have even considering a solution in a market that you have zero experience in? And I'm not saying it's not possible, but you have a higher chance of success if somebody on your team already has some level of experience in a certain market, it makes it a lot easier for you. Instead of just relying on what other people tell you, there'll be some existing experience to work with and an existing network. So once again, thank you very much. There'll be so many more of these going on. In June, we will be announcing some of our programs. Our director of programs is right here, even though she put on her moderator gele, not hat. She put on her moderator gele today, but Zumah is our director of programs, working hand in hand with some of our program partners. CC Hub is one. Future Africa is also another partner. And we're hoping to bring out the best in everybody that we have here and that is within our ecosystem here. Thank you very much, everyone. Before I go, if you haven't scanned this code or if you never did, we have a feedback form inside of the agenda. We would like you to please go ahead, scan it. We would like to hear back. If there's any question that you were not able to ask here, you can drop the feedback form. You can drop it in the feedback form. We'll do our best to respond to those questions too, because we want to make sure we can build and help everybody, as many people as possible. So thank you very much, everyone. I hope you had a nice time. Hold on. Okay, yeah, so we're going to take a picture for those that are interested. Can some of our ushers please come and help us clear the stage? Let's take a picture with everybody. Or I'll just carry the chair myself. Let's carry it.